podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Hello and welcome to 21 for 21, the sports media podcast, bringing you everything you need to know about sport and media in the 21st century. Ahead of the Women's Euro 2022 kicking off this evening, Jamie caught up with Ireland's record cap holder Emma Byrne to talk all things Euros.
Okay, so I'm joined then on the first day everything kicks off later today, the Women's 2022 Euros, delayed by a year, but I'm joined, very happily joined by Emma Byrne, former Arsenal goalkeeper, Ireland international, turned journalist, commentator, TV presenter. Emma, welcome to the podcast. Thanks very much for coming on.
But thanks for having me, Jamie. It's a pleasure to be here.
No, the pleasure's all mine. Lots happening then in the coming weeks, all kicking off today, as I said, the 2022 Euros held in England. Everything seems more exciting, a lot more anticipation, a lot more hype than ever before around a women's international competition. It seems to be growing sort of year on year, competition on competition, but this one is, I don't know, certainly from what I've seen, there's more hype than ever.
Yeah, no, you're dead right. I mean, women's football has been building this momentum generally for the last 6-7 years, well, forever, but more so in the last 6 or 7 years. And, you know, it's great to see, but I think as well that the fact that it's in England, the FA are basically the catalyst for supporting women's football in terms of federation. They've put a lot of money into it, and they've put a lot of resources, a lot of time, effort. And I think this is the time where it really shows and where it really, you know, comes to light. And I think it's just great timing because the England women's team are peaking, probably the best team that we've ever seen going into a tournament. Certainly feels like they're confident. The fact it's in England, there's a massive support from England. The fan base is huge in England. As you know, the stadiums are packed out. Maybe we could have got bigger stadiums. I don't know. That's another debate. But in general, it's massive. And, you know, just even walking around, I was in Manchester a few days ago, and just walking around Manchester, and there you can just see women's football, you know, everywhere. All the faces of the players are everywhere around the Etihad Stadium, of course, where they're going to use the city training ground, not the training ground, but the smaller stadium by the Etihad for the games. It's just massive, and everyone's talking about it. There's a great buzz, and you know, as you know, as a journalist, the media are completely behind it. They're all latching on. We've got people wanting to work in women's football, the pundits from, you know, the likes of Ian Wright to Emma Hayes. So yeah, it's massive. Everybody wants to be involved in it, whether it's on the pitch or off the pitch, and I think that's a brilliant sign.
Yeah, absolutely. The BBC are going to be broadcasting every match, I believe, which is is absolutely fantastic in terms of getting out there in England. In Spain, I know all Spain matches are going to be on the public RTVE or the various kind of state-funded channels. I'd imagine it's the same in other European countries. So
if it's not the same, they're being left behind. And you know, that's easy for me to say because Ireland, okay, we have the north of Ireland in the tournament, so obviously we've invested interest, but the Republic aren't in the tournament, but they're broadcasting all the games as well, which is fantastic. So there's a country that aren't in it, but they're going to broadcast the game. So, you know, if there is a country out there that's not broadcasting this, you're going to get left behind because everybody wants to watch this tournament.
Absolutely. And you've talked about the journalism, you know, the journalist interest. Everyone kind of wants their piece of this, which is really exciting. It's great to see it growing like that. We saw just yesterday a lot of the press conference, you know, the press rooms packed out, which is great to see that people are there wanting to bring the world, you know, all this information about the competition.
I mean, that's where it starts. And I've always said it, the media are our support system, really. They're our way, as I'm saying our as in the footballers. I'm not a footballer anymore, I do realize that, but they are the footballers' way to get into people's homes, to become visual, to try and encourage young footballers to get involved. And the only way to do that is if younger people can see the games and can see their role models, and that's through the media outlet. And, you know, I was playing when it started happening, and, you know, when there were only a few journalists covering women's game, and we knew them. It was like a personal relationship, which was nice. But now it's just become completely massive, which is exactly where it needs to be, and push on even more. But it is down to the likes of you and the rest of the journalists. They've built that relationship with the public and the female footballers. And you know, I've always said it, we need coverage, we need media coverage, we need more exposure, and that's happening right now. As you said, it's completely packed out, all the press conferences, everybody is engaged in it. I'd be really surprised if any media outlet aren't covering this in one way or another, which is exactly where we hoped we would be.
And if they're not, then they'll see everyone else covering it and think, wow, maybe we need to get involved in this.
They're idiots if they're not covering this. That's all I can say.
Before we get into the competition, and there was some bombshell news that we do need to talk about, I wanted just to ask you a bit sort of quickly. I don't know how, well, I do know how active you are on social media because I follow you on Twitter and the likes, but
not very active though, Jamie. Let's be honest, I could do a lot better.
But how, you know, based on from what you talked about when you were a player and the journalists were few and you knew them, and now it seems to have grown and grown and grown, the community seems to have grown with it. And I found that as a Twitter user, and as you well know, I found myself kind of involved in the world of women's football through my work at Barca. There is a quite not a small community, but quite a loyal and well-defined community, and a very positive, supportive one as well. And we've seen that emerge on the likes of Twitter. And then we see sort of, I always talk about the TikTok deal with Burnley, who were far from a top flight women's team, but they had a lot of their matches streamed on TikTok. And so again, there's an opportunity to build these little communities. How important has this been in the growth of the sport and the build up towards this competition?
Yeah, I mean, it's massive. I mean, it's huge because we live in a world where technology is taking over. Sometimes it's not a good thing, but it is how it is. It's a fact. And it's not just, you know, before you read things in the paper, you get your information from the newspaper. Imagine actually having paper, physical paper. It's crazy. I can't even imagine that now. But now, you know, you can get across to people, you can get information out to people through so many different platforms. And I love the fact that they're like TikTok are targeting younger players, because that's the women's game is about, the younger players and trying to encourage younger players. It's about a family event. You know, you can go and watch women's football and not worry about people scrapping, people fighting, use of bad language, maybe some, but not that much. So yeah, we need to target the younger generation. And you know, the likes of TikTok, you know, they're obsessed with it, aren't they? My nieces and nephews just are never off it. So again, it's more exposure, it's more interaction with the fans, it's making it really cool thing to do to support women's football. And you know, through Spotify, all of these major companies that are everywhere, and the kids have complete control over it, way more than I do, and complete understanding. It's fantastic. It's just another way to you know, get women's football into people's homes and get, you know, young people involved. It's great. It's a great thing.
TikTok, of course, are official partners of the Euros. That they're, you know, very clear about that they want to be a part of this, and it seems to be paying off for them so far. Like you say, it's a new generation. I'm not on TikTok, and although I've attempted a few times to have a look, but it's
so addictive. It's like super addictive. I'm not on it either, but I do creep on it. Like I'm on there and I'm looking, I'm like, it's actually so cool. But maybe I need to sit down and actually go through it a little bit. Otherwise, you get left behind, Jamie. We're going to be like the dinosaurs if we don't do it.
And it's so great seeing sort of Alex Scott and Beth Mead so involved in that partnership as well, and bringing the content. You know, seeing these lionesses and legends of the sport.
Basically you're seeing the players for who they really are. It's a very natural thing. It's, you know, it's quite intimate, so people get to know the players way more than they would the men's players, and that's who they are, and that's exactly what people want to see. It's their natural personality, and they can see that through these social media outlets.
Without comparing, do you think a part of the appeal of the women's game is that it is more accessible in that way? I think it's more accessible.
Absolutely. I mean, I just don't compare the two. They're, for me, completely different, the men and the women's football. But I think in general, whenever I speak to fans or when I was playing, they always used to say they'd go to the men's game and then they'd come to our games because they're on different days. And they used to say the same thing, like, this is brilliant. We get to meet the players. You always sign. You're always like, make sure you sign everyone's whatever they have, autograph things. And that's what they really enjoyed. They loved that. They loved the interaction with the players. And you know, that might be even, you know, getting less and less because there are way more fans. The players are, you know, they need to get in to recover. And this is kind of, you know, it's happening a little bit, but I think what women's football is doing really well is they're maintaining it through social media, through TikTok, through their own personal social media accounts. And they're trying not to lose that. It becomes difficult when it gets bigger and bigger. Sure. But in general, I think, you know, the fans just love that, and they love to come. They're closer to the pitch as well in the smaller stadiums. They know the players, they follow them around. If you have a fan that is very, very loyal and will go to the away games, the players get to know them. I mean, at Arsenal, we had a lady called Maria. I don't know, she's very famous, by the way. I don't know if you know her. Her name is Maria, and she's this little old lady that used to come to all the games. You can hear her in the men's games. Imagine, like, her singing. She has her own songs. And she started coming to the women's games, and she was more famous than us. We were like, oh my God, that's Maria from the men's game. And she used to follow us all around, and she's now like an official mascot for the women's team, and she's in all their videos and stuff like that. So yeah, it's much more likely to get to know the players and have access to the players in women's football.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I think that's great. I think I hope that continues, because it's certainly a massive appeal, and it what sets it aside. And like you say, it's best not to compare the two. And I think it seems that they're almost two entities apart now. Women's football, men's football, not comparable, because they're two very separate kind of. Right. They're going their own ways almost.
It's different. It is different, and there's nothing wrong with that. I think the problem at the start is we were trying to compete against them, and it was, I mean, not compete on the pitch, obviously, but I mean, compete for time and for fans, and it's completely different environment. And obviously it's the same sport, but you can see that there's much more of a family environment in women's football. It's generally targeted for you know, young people to come and enjoy. There's always activities in the big games around the stadiums, and it's just really nice atmosphere. And again, it's very safe. It's a very safe environment. So yeah.
Yeah, I think that's great. We spoke to Rebecca Southern. Well, Stuart spoke to Rebecca Southern earlier the week and ahead of the Euros, and she was sort of saying the same kind of thing. She was saying, you know, that they're having these two identities on their own, and it's you know, the problem before was people always compared, and now they could say, well, actually, you know, these are two different sports, two different events, and we can enjoy both without having to compare them.
As well as that, like, when I was growing up, I wasn't encouraged to play soccer because in Ireland we have Gaelic football, which is the primary sport. I wasn't encouraged to play because it was just a hobby. You know, you need to study. Why are you playing soccer all the time? Study, do this, focus on this. But actually now it's different, because there are careers in football. There are careers, whether it's on the pitch, it can be off the pitch, whether it's journalism, it's a massive career path. So now the teachers, the parents are realizing that, and they actually, you know, integrate it into the school program, which I think is fantastic. And that's a massive thing to get young people involved, because as well as that, they can see it. If they can see it, they can see their role models. You know, it's in the air, so to speak, so they can focus on it. But the fact that education can involve it in their curriculum, because there are career paths and a lot of them, I think is a massive thing for women's football as well.
So stay with us to hear more from Emma about the Euros and who to watch out for during this competition after this quick break. Moving then, just talking about the into the competition. It all kicks off today. I think 8 p.m. is the first match. England versus Austria kicks us off, as do Norway, Northern Ireland. Spain versus Finland tomorrow, and that's where the kind of the big news that's maybe cast a bit of a shadow over the start of the competition. Alexia Putellas has torn her ACL on the day before the competition started. Absolutely terrible news for Spain. But my first reaction was kind of, that's bad news for the competition too. And maybe bad news is a bit of an exaggeration, but it's a shame because I think fans like to see these kind of rivalries, right? And they were looking forward to maybe seeing Alexia against the likes of Sam Kerr or against Ada Hegerberg again, or, you know, these kinds of on an international stage.
This is a tournament where you can see the best of the best. And of course, Alexia is the best at the moment. So you want to see her in this tournament, and you can just through social media on Twitter, everybody's devastated. They're like, you know, emojis of the tears because they wanted to see her playing. And of course, Alexia is going to be absolutely devastated because this was her tournament, you know, just after winning the Ballon d'Or, playing so well for Barca all season. It was hopefully going to be her tournament. And it's a massive, massive loss for Spain primarily, and also for women's football in general, for the spectators, because she's such a fantastic player. And it's a real shame, you know, but unfortunately these things happen. Spain have a great squad. This is a time now for somebody else to step in and show that it's just, you know, they have a fantastic team and they have players that can go in there and do a job, and they do have that. And you know, I think hopefully the end of the tournament we'll be talking about a new talent emerging from the Spanish national team, and then you can see the return of Alexia and helping that team get even stronger, hopefully next year. But yeah, of course, it's the same with Ada Hegerberg for different reasons. She got injured 4 years ago, really difficult injury to come back from. Then she had disputes with her federation in Norway, and basically refused to play. That was a player we missed as well. You want to see the best players. So Alexia's out, Ada Hegerberg's in. And yeah, hopefully just wishing Alexia the best in her recovery. You know, it's a difficult thing. I've done it myself. Lots of female players do it themselves. Again, it brings us back to the question of periodization and training and how we can prevent these injuries. That's where another big difference in women and men's football is. We're completely different physically and have to be approached different. Training has to be approached different. But anyway, that's for a different show.
Well, right. And that seems to be the conversation that's not really being had, right? There was a doctor spoke on Catalan radio last night, and it was again, it was kind of like, he's talking about things that people don't really talk about around the women's sport that maybe need to be spoken about a bit more. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, in general, we're quite prudish, aren't we? We don't talk about things like that, like women's menstrual cycle and things like that, whereas Emma Hayes spoke about that 15 years ago. Sure. And you know, I'd be like, oh, everyone's scratching their head and closing their eyes, but it's true. And you know, the ligaments are much more flexible, and it is a scientific fact. And women are more prone to have ligament injuries, whether it's dislocations or strains or ruptures, in a certain time of their cycle. And it is something that people are looking into. There is a study, but it's 2022. Why is it only now that they're starting to study a bit more?
Absolutely.
Sorry, I have a flock of dogs outside my window. I don't know if you can hear that. They're all my dogs going crazy.
Oh, no.
He is walking down the street. This happens all the time.
Okay, so all that being said then, and I don't want to take up too much more of your time, and your dogs clearly want you. What are you looking forward to in this competition then now? What's going to stand out for you? What should we be looking out for?
What am I looking? I'm looking forward to so many things. I'm looking forward to the fact it's in England, because I think they do a great job promoting tournaments in general. I'm looking forward to the standard. The last Euros, the standard was very good and very impressive, and I was hoping it was really going to kick women's football on. But this year, I think it's going to be even better. We have so many teams that could win, which is the first time ever. Like, we're not just talking about Germany for once, which I love. In fact, nobody's talking about Germany, which I love, because it means the tournament's up for grabs. There's 5 or 6 teams that could win this. And also, we're not just talking about 1 or 2 players. Every team has a dangerous player or a player that we need to watch. So for me, I'm really looking forward to see how managers go into games. It's not just about picking your best 11. It's about the tactics. It's about the opposition. It's about plan Bs, which we don't normally see in women's football. We haven't seen so far how they can adapt and change within the game. So I'm looking forward to the tactical side of things, because I think the players are there. We don't need to talk about how good a player is. They know, they're in social media. Everybody knows the players at this stage. So for me personally, I'm looking forward to how managers deal with this.
Would you dare pick a favorite? Who are you going to be cheering on?
Cheering on is different than who I think is going to win.
Okay.
Obviously, I'm going to be cheering on Northern Ireland. They are my home team. But I like Spain, living in Barcelona, working for Barca FC. Obviously, I want Spain to win. But I do like Norway, I have to say. And not many people are talking about Norway. So I always love, coming in with an underdog. So I'm going to go for Norway to do well. And I'm looking forward to see Caroline Graham Hansen and Ada Hegerberg link up. But I actually think France are going to go the whole way. I think they're going to do it. I think they're at a very good time.
France.
The players are who they have are peaking at the moment. They're a very strong, powerful team. And I think they have a nice route as well. So yeah, for me, France.
Okay, there you go. The ones to watch: Northern Ireland, Norway, France. I guess I've got to go with the Lionesses. But I'm excited to see. I
knew you were going to say them, so I let you have them.
I got to go with my home side, I guess. But I am excited to see Spain in action, and yeah, watch out for those Scandinavian sides, because
Sweden,
the dark horses of the competition, I think.
You could name six teams, and Denmark as well, who are very good. Sweden are in top form. You're expecting them to do well. The Netherlands, the holders,
Absolutely.
You can't dismiss them. So many teams. That's what I mean. No one can call it. That's why it's so exciting.
It is. It's going to be a very, very exciting competition. Emma, thank you very, very much for joining us. And enjoy the competition, and maybe we'll try and catch up on the other end of it or towards the end.
You enjoy it. I'll be watching tonight.
Me too. I think I'm going to be watching more international football than ever. I think I'm very excited about this one. Yes, more than the Wimbledon. We're going to watch women's football more than tennis. This is great. Absolutely. All right. Well, great. Thank you very much. And we'll catch up soon. Jamie.
Thanks again to Emma for joining Jamie for this really great and insightful conversation ahead of the Euros. Be sure to like and subscribe to our 21 for 21 channels across all your favourite podcast networks to hear more throughout the Euros.
Sports Social Podcast Network.